This is a demonstration of the GSI Audera Pro. The Audera Pro is a clinical evoked potential and OAE system that can be used for the stimulation, recording, and measurement of auditory evoked potentials, vestibular, myogenic potentials, auditory steady-state responses, and OAEs. It includes a comprehensive battery of evoked potential tests that include ECOG, ABR, middle and late latencies, P300, MMN, EABR, VEMP, and ASSR, DP-OAE and TE-OAE, as well as input-output and spontaneous OAE. There are 5 available Audera Pro configurations: 2-channel ABR only, TE and DP OAE only. So Audera Pro configurations that include OAE always include both TE and DP. There's a configuration that combines ABR and OAE, ABR and ASSR, and then a full configuration that includes ABR, ASSR, and OAE. And again, OAE is TE and DP. So each one of these configurations should hopefully fit into your clinic. The Audera Pro, it has a small footprint. Here you can see it mounted in the stand that's included with every system. It has an integrated preamplifier and lightweight patient cables. You can place the Audera Pro in the horizontal position with a laptop or computer resting on top. You can even mount it to the wall, whatever fits your clinic. Here's an example of the Audera Pro in action where the laptop is resting on top of the device and the cables are coming out the back of the Audera Pro connecting to the patient. So what comes with an Audera Pro that has ABR and ASSR? First, you have your transducers. Included with every system are insert earphones, headphones, and the B81 bone oscillator. You will also receive 2 patient cables. So the one on the left is the 4 snap lead cable, and that's a combination of the electrode lead as well as the patient cable all in one. So all you need is disposable snap electrodes. The one pictured here is the Ambu electrode that's included in the starter kit. What's nice about this cable is you really only have to know where to place the disposable electrodes on the patient's head, and then everything else is connected via the cable. The 5-lead cable that's pictured on the right can be used for all types of evoked potentials and must be used if you are going to use reusable electrodes pictured here with the cup electrodes or any specialty electrodes such as the TM electrode for ECOG or gold foil tip trodes. So that cable can be used with any electrode that ends in a DIN connector that you see here. If the Audera Pro has OAE, the probe that's provided looks a lot like the Corti with a few differences. One, it's longer, so it's 3 times longer than the Corti probe because it's attached to a laptop. It's not exactly portable as the Corti is. The probe body is white, it's pictured here, and it's actually a specialized plastic that we use because the Audera Pro has to plug into the mains outlet versus the Corti probe, which is battery operated. So for safety reasons, when you're connected to mains, you need to use a non-metal probe body. And this is actually a specialized plastic, not quite metal, not quite all plastic, so something in the middle. The connector on the end is the same though, HDMI connector, so it plugs into the back of the Audera Pro, and the probe tips you're going to use and the probe tubes are exactly the same as those used with the Corti. So I'm going to go through a series of talk about kind of the features of each one of the test modalities and then do a demonstration of the software so you can see how the test will run. So in general, as I said before, it has a nice sleek design, looks very modern, no external amplifier, that's embedded, so you only have a patient cable. We use the GSI OAE probe, which is very similar to the Corti probe, and we always provide the B81 oscillator. And this oscillator can obtain higher outputs with less distortion. So that may come in handy when you're doing threshold testing or perhaps for OVEM testing. In addition, there's one database for all modalities. So for those of you that have used the original Audera, it also had one database. But the difference here is you can actually combine test results from the different modalities in one report. So I'll show you that a little bit later. And that's so you can have ABR results as well as DPOAE results in one report, not two separate reports. The other thing that's nice is you can create a number of predefined report comments similar to GSI Suite, and that can save a lot of time when you're writing reports. So the evoked potential system is two-channel. It includes ECOG and ABR protocols, middle and late latencies, P300 and MMN, and this is something new to the GSI Audera. The original Audera was not able to perform P300 or MMN. That's a special protocol where more than one test stimuli, different test stimuli, are presented at different rates to the ear. EABR is also included, as well as OVEMP and CVEMP protocols. So for all of those test types I just mentioned, there are already created multiple protocols in the software. So you have a starting point if you're going to perform any of these tests. It's important, though, if you're an experienced evoked potential user, that you check the protocols and the parameters to make sure that they match what you do in your clinic. We also include a variety of test stimuli, including the CE chirp octave bands, speech stimuli, as well as clicks and tone bursts. And we provide normative data for infants and adults. And the normative data for infants comes from this study that was published in 2016. And the included protocols, when you look at the library of protocols when you're starting a test, the protocols for neonates match the protocol that was used to collect the norms in this study. So you know you have to use very similar test parameters when you're using normative data. If you have your own normative data that you've collected in your clinic, or you prefer a different normative data set, it's very easy to implement those into the software. There are a few other things that are available in the GSI Audera Pro. Area ratio for ECOG and amplitude ratio. So amplitude ratio is what we've done for years and years. Area ratio is relatively new. There are digital filters that can be applied after the collection is done. Block averaging, Bayesian weighting, residual noise and SNR measures for every waveform that you're collecting. So you'll see it real time as you're collecting, as well as those values are also saved with every waveform. You can quickly obtain a waveform correlation or comparison between two recordings if you're questioning the repeatability. And then you can also split a waveform into two parts. If you collect an alternating waveform, you can split it into its rare and con parts after the test is done. So when you launch the ABR module, this is the screen that you're going to see. The white area in the middle is where all your waveforms will appear. At the upper right corner, you'll see the EEG. That'll be live, so you'll get a sense of how quiet or not your patient will be. Right below that, the impedance readings are going to show. At the very bottom is the collection toolbar. So these are settings that you are most likely going to change during the course of an evaluation. So that would be intensity, your ear, And the choices there are right, left, and both. Your stimulus. And this will also is where you will go to change your transducer and whether or not you want to put masking in the ear. Phase, rare, con, and alternating. Rate. For rate, you can double click on that icon and enter any value that you want. Number of sweeps, and then the window, and that will be the window will vary depending on the test that you're going to be running. There's also the side toolbar here, which has gives you the ability to increase and decrease the size of your waveforms and check impedance. This icon here is for amplifier settings. So I'm going to go ahead and start the collection and the recording. And what I'm going to do is actually load a protocol that was already created. So I'm going to select Load Settings, Adult Click, and Open. And down at the bottom, the parameters, collection parameters will change for that protocol. The default is, for this protocol, is 80 dB, right ear, click. If I select click, here you can see the headphone and the masking areas. Phase is rare. I'm going to change the rate to 19.7. I'm doing that because I know I have some electrical noise in my home office. And now what I want to do is check my amplifier settings. And I want to pause a moment here. So when you launch the amplifier settings window, in the lower right, here is where you're going to look at your gain and your high and low pass filters. So the gain for this protocol is 100,000, which is what I would expect for ABR. High pass filter is set to 100 Hertz, which is expected for an adult protocol, and 1500 Hertz is the low pass filter. And that I changed from 3000 Hertz, again, because I know I have some intermittent high frequency noise that appears in my ABR waveforms here in my home office. Now they don't change, doesn't change the other channel automatically, so you have to navigate to the left channel, channel B, and make the same changes. So I'm going to go ahead and start the recording again, change the low pass to 1500 for channel B, and I'm good to go. Now what I'm going to do is check impedance by clicking on the impedance icon on the side toolbar. The impedance readings are going to show there right below the EEG. And when that's done, I'm going to select the Acquire button and start the test. So my right waveform is going to appear on the right side. In the upper left corner of that white area, you'll see the number of sweeps as well as artifacts and percentage of artifacts. I can change the size of my waveform if I want by clicking on the positive or negative icon. And I can select that waveform when it's green. That's the selected waveform. I can mark the waveform during collection if I want. I can move the waveform up and down on the page. And to mark a waveform, what you can do is just select the waveform marker, hover over that spot on the waveform and left click, and the marker will appear. There's wave 5 on my click ABR. I'm going to select wave 3 and also mark wave 1. The collection is done, but I'm still going to go ahead and mark wave 1. If I wanted, I could launch the latency intensity function, which isn't too exciting because I only have one waveform there. And I do want to pause the recording again, and I want to draw your attention here to the page area. So to the left of the EEG, you can see the acquisition screen in dark blue. That's the screen I'm in now. And then pages 1, 2, and 3 are also in a dark blue. And that indicates that there is some information on those pages. Each one of those pages is actually a page in your report. So what I actually did is I stored some ABR and OAE data on pages 2 and 3. Page 2 is the ABR data collected in both ears at 80, 60, 40, and 30. So you'll be able to see all the waveforms on the screen. You can sort them and according to dB, which is what I will do, and then I will adjust the size of the waveform so they fit nicely on the page. So I'm going to go ahead and start the recording again, and I'm going to navigate over there to page 2 so you can see all my waveforms. I'm going to sort them and then make them a little bit smaller. I'm also going to go to page 3. That's where I have my TE results right there on the screen, and page 1 is where I have my test summary and my latency intensity function. This is what the report looks like, page 1. Page 2 are my waveforms, and page 3 has some details there, and then the last page is my TE. So here you can see how you can combine ABR and TE-OAE in one report. Okay, a couple other things to show you is you can display the latency information to the right of the waveform label. You can also see all the details of your marked points. There's an icon on the side toolbar that you would select, and you would be able to see the latency as well as the interpeak latencies. To view the amplitude, you would simply drag the bottom marker down to the bottom of the waveform or the trough of the waveform, and then the amplitude of that waveform would also appear. Here's an example of ECOG. I have base, SP, and AP marked, and down here in the bottom you can see the amplitude ratio for those markings, so 0.29 or 29%, which is normal. If I wanted to see the area ratio, I would mark the waveform, also base, SP, and AP, and then drag the base or the amplitude marker over to the bottom of the AP waveform, and then I would see the area ratio above the waveform. If I wanted to apply bandpass filtering, I could. So if you look at this example, the top example is a waveform that was collected with filter settings of 100 to 3000 Hertz. After the collection was done, I was able to apply a bandpass filter of 100 to 1500 Hertz. So the low pass I dropped to 1500 Hertz, and that was the resultant waveform. When you do apply filtering, your original waveform is always saved as well as the filtered waveform. This is a little drastic. Hopefully you won't see this very often. You can easily calculate a correlation between two waveforms, which is a measurement of the similarity. You put your two cursors on the screen, so you would set the area in time that you want to correlate, and then the cross correlation will appear. In this case it's 0.80. 1.0 is perfect correlation. Okay, moving on to ASSR. For ASSR, you can present binaurally up to 4 frequencies per ear for a total of 8 frequencies. For those of you that are familiar with the original Audera, you could only present 1 frequency at a time. So this could be potentially a time saver. When you start the collection, right there on the screen, you can see an indication of the response. And you can also view the polar plots and the FFT display of the test details. So there is a lot of information that's provided for ASSR. So this is the ASSR test screen. It should look very familiar, almost exactly the same as the ABR test screen. Down at the bottom, the collection toolbar doesn't have as many selections, and because with ASSR you simply have to select the intensity you want to test and the frequencies, and then you're ready to go. So the waveforms actually will appear in our ASSR for Audera Pro. They might not mean a lot, so you might see a nice repeatable response, but sometimes they can be quite noisy. You're not marking that waveform, it's just displaying there as an FYI. So what really happens is, to judge whether or not a response is there, is the statistics that's being performed behind the scenes. And those statistics will indicate whether or not a repeatable response is present. You'll see the live EEG, you'll check your impedance just like ABR, and then I want to draw your attention here to the stimulus information. This is where you would select, by clicking in the box, your test frequencies. Up at the top, for left ear and right ear, you can see the frequency and the modulation frequency. So 500 hertz left ear is modulated at 79 hertz. Left ear 77, right ear 79, etc. So the modulation frequencies are between 77 hertz and 4000 hertz. So once you start a test, you want to keep your eye on that stimulus information, because as soon as one of those frequencies turns green, that indicates that a response is present. So you can keep an eye on that screen and until all greens are obtained, and then go down in intensity. So you'll be able to see that during the collection. If you want more information, you can launch the polar plot and spectral graph. And on this graph, if you look at the polar plot, you can see the amplitude goes up to 0.2 microvolts. Red is right ear, blue is left ear. The vectors, the longer the vector, the stronger or larger the response. If the frequency is in green, that indicates a significant response was found. And there's also a circle at the very end of that vector. The bigger the circle, the less certain there's a response. So your signal to noise ratio is a little bit smaller. But if it's green, it's still significant. That data is shown also in the spectral graph. So if you look at the polar plot, the vectors for the right ear are much longer than the left ear, and that's exactly how it appears on your spectral graph, which is amplitude over frequency. So you can see the lines are where the modulation is. The gray is your background noise. So it's basically same as polar plot data, but in the frequency domain. A response is present or significant when the SNR value is 6.13 or greater. You can display your results on an audiogram. By default, it's an SPL audiogram. You can plot individual trials, responses only, and you can also change it to an HL audiogram. For reporting, you would copy this audiogram image to the report page, and then you can paste that in your ABR report if you wanted. Or you can print the audiogram directly, and that's what the audiogram looks like. Okay, moving on to TEOAE. TEOAE displays the results in a time waveform that is transformed into an FFT display of the results for easy analysis. You'll see cross-correlation, SNR, TE amplitude for each frequency band, as well as an overall cross-correlation measure. You can customize the passing criteria, and you can run spontaneous OAE. That is done in the TE module. So this is what the TE module looks like. Looks very similar to ABR and ASSR. You have the white area is where your TE results are going to appear. I've already collected a TE in my right ear. Here you can see the time waveform and the frequency transformed into the frequency domain. On the frequency domain, that is amplitude over frequency. Dark green is noise. The yellow is the response. So you want the response to be bigger, separated from the noise. Down at the bottom, you can see the frequency bands from 1000 to 4000 hertz. You have the signal to noise ratio appearing, as well as the amplitude of the response. And then the overall result is a pass. I'm going to go ahead and start the recording so you can see a TE running in my left ear. So you simply have to click on the test ear and you're ready to go. You're going to see the left results appear there. I can move those down so they're equal to the right ear. Remember, green is noise and yellow is the response. Down at the bottom here you can see the frequency bands, amplitude, and the signal to noise. To pass a frequency, the signal-to-noise ratio would have to be 6 dB. That is customizable, so if you want, you can change that, and you can also change the number of frequencies required for a pass. So the test is done. The overall result is a pass. Looks very similar between the two ears. Moving on to DPOAE. DPOAE includes a 4-frequency screening protocol, 6-frequency protocol diagnostic, which is the default protocol, and a couple of more than 12 frequency test protocols. There are normative data sets for normal hearing adults, as well as the Gorga data from the 1990s. You can select the 90th or 95th percentile to display. You have the ability to create an unlimited number of protocols. You can customize your passing criteria, and you can perform input-output functions. So here is, I'm going to do a recording, but for now I just want you to give you the, explain the screen. So this is a left ear result here in the large graph. The blue squares indicate the response, the OAE, at each test frequency. The dark green is the noise. You can see the DP in the frequency domain. You have your DP, which is the tall, or the where the blue square is, along with the noise in the frequency bands. You can see the levels of your frequencies, L1 and L2, which in this case is 6555. Each data point will have different DP data information, and then up at the top right corner is the overall result. I'm going to go ahead and start the recording. If I select a different frequency, then you can see my spectrum level and DP data will change. This is the acquisition screen, and now what I want to do is actually run a test in my right ear. So to do that, all I have to do is put the probe in my right ear and select right ear up at the top. So the first thing that happens is a measurement of noise, then the in-the-ear correction, that's the calibration, and then the test is going to start. This is the 6-frequency protocol. It's going to start in the high frequencies, so all the default protocols that are included begin in the high frequencies, but you can customize that. Dark green is noise. Red triangle is the response in the right ear at each frequency. And if it's filled in red, then that's what you're going to see. The data for that data point will show in the spectrum and DP data areas. If I want, I can add normative data to the screen. I can select norms and apply. These are young normal hearing. And then now I'm going to navigate over to the display screen. I want to put some norms on my display screen so you can see what it looks like. I passed in my right ear, referred in my left ear. So you can see both ears displayed side by side. For reporting, you can combine test modalities into one report. I'll show you that. And you can also create an unlimited number of predefined comments. So that will really save time down the road as you collect your ABRs. This is page 1 of a report that has my logo. You can put your logo in there if you'd like, as well as history and test summary and latency intensity function. Page 2 is my waveforms. Page 3 is my TE results. And if I wanted, I could even do DP in my report. So this is all in one report that was printed from the ABR module. So in summary, the GSI Audera Pro is sleek. It has a nice modern design with embedded preamplifier. It has ABR, ASSR, and TE and DP OAE. There are objective waveform analysis options. It's 2-channel for ABR and ASSR, and any Audera Pro with OAE has both TE and DP using a modified Corti probe, and normative data is included for both OAE as well as ABR. Thank you so much for listening in. Please contact your local distributor For more information, if you have any questions about this presentation, please feel free to call me or email me. Thank you so much.